I don't believe in prolonging life unnecessarily. But on the other hand, I've come to see also the value that even the cognitively impaired person has to the family. I've had so many times back in the day when I made some, well, at least I think, so genius diagnosis. And everyone's like, "Oh, you're the man." And then the next moment you screw up majorly. So the traditional cure was they would tie string to their manly bits and try and pull it out. Reach out to somebody and do it with intention.
Welcome back to No Ordinary Joe, a podcast series that uncovers the less than ordinary lives of ex-Josephians who are shaping our world today. Hi, I'm Jason Chen, for the class of 98, your host. Today's guest is from the class of 96, but his journey to the medical frontline was anything but standard. Dr. Liam Pee Tze-Yang is a locum doctor in the high-stakes ER department at Tan Tock Seng Hospital. But before the white coat came a series of setbacks that would have broken most people. Liam wasn't just retained in secondary school, he was a double repeater, retaking his A-levels after failing to hit the mark in London. How does a student branded as a failure by the system fight his way into one of the most demanding professions on earth? We're getting the full scope. But before that, a message for Simon Seow, president of the SGI-OBA.
Dear Josephians and friends, in life we usually take the scenic route, but it is the road less travelled that brings the best surprises. A little pain but a lot of heart. Enjoy the ride in today's episode of No Ordinary Joe. If you have a story to share, please reach out to the Secretariat at the SGI-OBA 8628-9678. Now let us remember now and always that we are in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. Jason, over to you. Liam, Dr. Liam.
Hi Liam, thanks
Hi,
for
Jason.
being here. Well, let's start your journey in SGI. You transferred from Morris Stella and then did something I heard of. You volunteered to repeat secondary 2 back in SGI. Well, most kids back then or even now dread being retained. Well, who likes school anyway, right? But you chose to make this a very strategic move to help your journey in becoming a doctor. Why that choice?
I remember from a young age, I had an inkling that I wanted to enter the medical field as a medical doctor. Why that is so, I'm not entirely sure, but I felt a strong pull and a strong urge. I had a very good childhood pediatrician, a childhood doctor who was very inspiring. He was a big character in the world, which I found out later on. But I think that and I can't really explain why, but definitely I would call, I mean, as I've grown older, I think I refer to it more as a calling more than anything else. And you're certainly right, at the ripe old age of, 13, 14 years old, right? The last thing in the world you want to do is to get left behind by your peers while, you're wearing shorts and they've moved on to long pants already, But I think what happened was I passed, I did pass Sec 2, but essentially I was streamed into the art stream. As everybody knows, right, to the path to medicine begins, certainly PSLE, streaming in Sec 2, pure science, pure maths, pure arts, triple science kind of thing. So I think I already knew at that point if I wanted to pursue this career that something had to be done or it's curtains for me at that point in time.
So just for the record, this choice to repeat, was it yours or was it something your parents wanted you to do?
I think my parents were supportive. Certainly, of course, I'm sure that there was some parental thing, Asian parents, right?
Yes.
Doctor, lawyer, accountant kind of thing. So I'm sure they were pleased to hear that, oh, wow, this kid wants to, consider being a doctor. So I think they were certainly supportive. Would I say it was a push from them to say, boy, you better get this done, right? I wouldn't put it that strongly. But I would say they were strongly supportive. I think more importantly was the support of the school, right? And I think this, for me, is one of those areas where SGI and being, person-centered in that way really came to the fore for me, because things would have been very different if they had not, they said, a lot of schools, you might say, well, you've passed already. This is what you streamed into. I'm sorry, it's not that you failed and you need to repeat. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
And SGI being a pressure cooker on its own, whether culturally or academically, was it difficult being the older guy in the class?
The older guy, I think it was, certainly it's not just SGI. I think it's just being a boy and and well, young man, right? There's a certain amount of humiliation, right? So there's humiliation from your, like I said, short pants to long pants. All your friends have grown up and moved on, and there you are, and now you're mixing with the juniors, the chaps that you know were beneath you before. Although it's only a year, and with time and wisdom, what's a year, right? But yeah, it was a big bite of humility. Did I feel that I was bigger, better, older than the rest of them? Certainly not. If anything, I felt smaller. Did I feel the need to prove myself even more? Certainly, but I was given a great opportunity by Brother Paul Rogers, and I'm very grateful for that. And I suppose I really, really felt strongly that I had to prove myself, and maybe that was an early driving force. Yeah.
I felt a little bit of warmth coming from you when you talk about Paul Rogers.
Yeah,
special memories.
Certainly. So what happened was when
I'm sure he's watching this video from Australia, so gotta behave yourself.
Oh, I just texted him a few days ago, so we remain close to this day. And Brother Paul was special to me simply because he was quite a fearsome character. Certainly, as he got older and shaved off his mustache and went to CJC and became all warm and fuzzy, it was quite different. When he first came over, he had a big thick mustache, and he was, we used to call him Saddam Hussein, so he was quite a terror. And the kinder ones called him Tom Selleck, but we thought of him, in the former sense. But it was quite intimidating to approach him from nowhere. Never had any dealings with him before, and I was a very good grey man. So that meaning I was very good at disappearing to the background. And so for my first 2 years of school, I had no ECA or CCA as they call it nowadays. I actually managed to hide away.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You were lucky ones.
Yeah. So I was quite hidden in that way. So I still remember when I went to see him, and the first thing he says to me, he says, "Oh, right, okay, what's your ECA?" And I say to him, "Oh, I've got no ECA, brother." He goes, "What do you mean you've got no ECA?" And so basically he sat me in his office, gave me the core room therapy, and he challenged me. So he really pushed me, which I really needed as a young man. I was never a troublemaker. Wasn't the best student, clearly. And he basically put it to me. He said he would give me this chance and this opportunity. He would believe in me, give me this chance on the condition that I take up an ECA.
Okay.
But there were criteria for the ECA. It had to be a sport. It had to be a team sport. And these two criteria. Otherwise, no uniform group, plastic modeling club, none of that business. It had to be a sport, and it had to be a team sport. Which was very interesting because now, of course, as we get older, and I look back and I realize, as an educator, he knew that that's what young men need. They need guidance. You need role models. You need challenge. You need somewhere to get rid of that young man's energy. And so what happened was, I eventually decided on my chosen ECA, and I foolishly chose cross country.
Okay, something that he was in charge of.
Which, for the first year, he was going to be the coach of cross country.
Correct.
Right, he was taking over from the PE department because it was a little bit neglected at that point in time, and so he had handpicked all the runners. So he was yanking guys out left, right, and center from their own usual ECAs and forcing them to join cross country, right? So it's kind of like an elite selection kind of thing. And for me, here's the ridiculous bit. I couldn't run. I couldn't pass my 2.4. I think my Sec 2 NAFA test, I finished 5 rounds, and I took so long for the 6th round that they just stopped me altogether and said, "You failed already, don't bother." And so it was like, people would be like, what are you doing? Why did you even join? And it was for the sole reason that it was too humiliating, like what I mentioned, to have to go as an unknown individual to another sport, explain to the coaches, why are you older than the rest, etc., etc. And I had one good friend in cross country who was a super runner, okay? And that's the only reason. And so I joined them. And I realized, looking back now, that was part of the journey, the steal, learning. I mean, cross country is just the most painful sport of all the sports, right? And certainly for a chap who's not particularly tall, not particularly long-limbed, it was quite a challenge. And part of that formed my journey is in terms of like forming, talk about grit, determination, believing in yourself, no matter what. These were all the early beginnings. And of course, on top of that, having the principal of the school, the almighty Brother Paul, as your personal coach in that sense, and giving you this chance, and and in a way you feel recognized. And I think that led to a lot of, if you talk about self-confidence. So you say, did I feel, like the bigger man in repeat Sec 2? I didn't feel the bigger man, but I felt more recognition. I felt like I was a known entity now. And I think that made a big difference, self-confidence and like I said, this whole process of growing and developing as a man, Yeah.
So how did the theme of Aura et Labora help craft that identity that you just talked about?
Aura et Labora. Okay, other than constantly having to shout it at sports meets, I think, or rather, I feel that life in a mission school, and in particular St. Joseph's, is very different from, let's say, a secular school. This I know from meeting people over the years. Sometimes when you're young, you don't really see the relevance. Every morning, say a morning prayer. Some teachers would say prayer before class. So, I still remember Mr. Fred Zuzati would always make sure we say the Angelus at noon, which was great because it's 5 minutes out from class. But these things, I feel they are like little seeds that the Lord plants. And so the prayer component really helps to center you. And even though you're forced to go for like RME classes and religious moral education classes, forced to go to chapel and stuff like that, it may feel forced when you're young, but it really plants a seed in you. And I found as well, again, with over the years, that many converts to Catholicism are actually exposed when they're in school. And they don't really understand the roots of it until much later on. Yeah. The work part, the labora part, I suppose all school is laborious. So I don't know if we focus much on the labora, to be honest, we say it, and everybody, of course, studied and did their part. But I think for me, work wasn't just about studies, work was also about training, particularly because it was so painful. I wasn't a particularly talented or good runner. I'm good enough to stay in the school team in that sense, but I was no more than a squad player. But I think that, physical work, mental work, I think that really is something which was burned into us from that age. And it's true. I mean, prayer and work is something which we carry through to our adult lives constantly still.
And I can sense a life story right about, right here, we're talking about your cross-country days, right, whereby you were a non-runner, you became part of the school team. So any fond memories from there?
A lot of pain. December holidays burn.
Marichi Reservoir runs.
Yeah. We start training when school ends, right? So everybody's off on their holidays and we start training. So because the old nationals used to be in February, so by the time Feb comes around, you need to be trained. So there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of camaraderie. Again, another thing that young men need, right? That belonging, that sense of team, something bigger than yourself. I think it was a great sense of pride. Like I said, being in Brother Paul's team, being in cross country, being, I remember we had training sessions, sometimes combined with the canoeing boys, right? Because I met Richie too. So the coach says, oh, go and do cardio with the cross country boys. And the sort of semi-delight we take in seeing the so-called tough canoeing guys like dying on the hills with us, I'll never forget, there was one chap, we were doing some hill sprints, and then he comes up to me and he goes, I can't feel my buttocks. They're numb, and then, so we had a good laugh and we're like, yeah, we have that sense that we are, sense almost like, we are the elite, right? So I think that cross-country definitely strengthened me in that way, and it's carried me through my entire adult life. And to this day, again, not being the best runner, but of most of my peers, I'm one of the few who still run. And I went on to do like ultra marathons and stuff like that. Yeah. And it all started from that, from the guy who couldn't even finish 5 rounds, right? It went on to that. So I say, again, not the fastest, but what I learned was truly grit and just keep going, never stop, never give up.
So it's all about going the distance right now.
Pretty much. And you realize that all these things which when you're young, right, a lot of things that we don't understand in terms of like, you have to be the best of the best, otherwise you're nothing. But you don't realize that you have to, well, rather what we should teach young people, I feel, is that what you've experienced is only so much, and there's so much more to life to come, right? And again, at work, sometimes I meet this because I see a lot of young people, and of course, mental health is the big thing nowadays, right? And that's something which I try and pass on to them and say that, what, like I said, staying back, right? Being retained 1 year, it feels like the world is ending. But looking back, you realize that it's really nothing. It's really nothing in the big scheme of things. So I would say, yeah, cross country really changed my life. It changed my world, and it really has led me through many difficult times in my life thereafter.
So would you say that it was the collective experience of cross country and staying back that really gave you the foundations to help develop yourself to the resilient person that you are today?
Well, there were numerous other times that I messed up, which added to the resilience. But yeah, I think those were the beginning building blocks. I think that sort of age group is when you really start becoming self-aware. Before that, you're kind of like more like your parents' kid, or your ideas are formed pretty much by your immediate circle. And as we grow into teenagehood, right, that's all part of that tumultuous 6-7 years, and you really gotta grow yourself in that way. And having the right influences, having the right environment is really worth its weight in gold. Yeah, right mentors. Young men need mentor figures, right, and that's another thing which I feel very strongly about.
So who were some of the mentors back at SGI for you?
Brother Paul for sure, Brother Michael, another one. Good teachers. I had young teachers who are, well, not so young now, but still in the school. So people like Genesis Chan, Dominic Ang, various Chinese teachers who live in the school forever. But really, I mean, a lot of these, Miss Ong Seok Ching, there were quite a few of these teachers, Fred Zuzate. They did many things in many small ways, and they really shaped my worldview.
I actually like the connection right now because Genesis Chan has also been a mentor of myself.
Ah,
Right,
fantastic.
Ms. Ong Seok Cheng changed my life. So really love the connection.
Yeah.
And point to note, Genesis Chan has not changed over the years.
Exactly.
He looks exactly the same. Even now as an adult, I'm like, where's the fountain of youth? Mr. G, you still have not told us where you find the fountain of youth.
You got to ask the wife.
And this whole journey of SGI, right? I mean, was it a moment for you whereby you were a model student, or were you more of a rebel in school?
I would say I was neither. I was never a top student. I was never a top runner. I was never a troublemaker. But I think what I was I just, like I said, got by, right? And in many ways, sometimes that's supposed to the best way, right? Like I tell you, the grey man slipping in and out, doing what I can, where I can. Yeah, I was never a troublemaker. Never got a single yellow form.
Wow.
Back in the days of yellow forms. Yeah. I was outstanding a lot, especially for Chinese class. Like, the old literally outstanding outside the class.
So did many of us.
Exactly. But I was streamed into the bottom class for Chinese. I still remember I was in E1 stream for Chinese. It was hilarious. A whole bunch of English speaking guys in Chinese class, all speaking in English. But yeah, so it's I would say neither. Just in between, doing my thing. Yeah, trying to survive.
So you were an ordinary Joe that found your way, basically.
I think so. I like to think so, and I think that's very much the Josephian story. In for many of us, we excel in non-traditional ways. I feel I've met many Joes over the years who are quietly doing what they do, and they do it with little fanfare, and we make a difference in a different way.
I mean, Ong Seok Cheng will be very proud for us to see in the next sentence, but you personify, right, literature, right? You personify what the statement goes by. Life is not a sprint, but actually a long marathon. You never gave up on that.
I hope so. I mean, I certainly hope so. I owe much to her, and I owe much to many of the teachers that we met along the way. Yeah. I'm probably caused them much pain and much suffering, but yeah. I used to be told many times by numerous teachers, you are not applying yourself, everything along the lines of, you could be so much more, but you are not. Oh, come on, man. Gotta get your act together. Yeah.
And along the years, right, as you progress, right, you've gone through ups and downs. So did Aura Labora change for you from the days you were a student and now to a doctor that you are?
Wow, that's a question we should take hours to answer. Because I mean, that for me at this stage of my life, it extends more into things like spirituality, which of course, if we allow it with age and experience and God opening our minds and our hearts, certainly there's a lot more a lot deeper that we can go into. But I think the first step is that, first of all, the seed has to be planted. And then following that, I think we have to look at how we respond to God's call. he reaches out to us all, and it's just at what stage, do we respond? Are we going to hear his call first of all? Excuse me. And how do we respond? Following that. And for me, certainly, especially in my line of work, we see a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of death, a lot of just people in need, and especially in the emergency department, right? People at the acute hour. I think that to lose touch with your spirituality is when we become robotic and when we lose that touch with humanity. And I mean, this is a real long conversation, but really it is something which strikes me on a daily basis. And it need not be that, I see some terrible trauma or something like that. Sometimes even the simplest cases, people coming in for some random illness, which really isn't a big thing. But it's the backstory. It's the things that you see them, how they suffer, how they are struggling, and how we can help them. And in that moment, often you have that. For me, you have that decision. Are you going to close your eyes? Are you going to ignore their suffering and just look? You're here for this. I'm going to deal with that issue. Everything else which I see on the side is not really relevant. And for me, that's where the spirituality component comes in. When you're aware that I feel anyway, again, it's a calling, and I'm here to do the Lord's work. In that sense, that if I were to close it off, then I'm not answering God. He's calling me, and I'm ignoring Him. And it's for every single patient. Mm-hmm. Every single person. That's the way I feel, and that's the way I treat every single person.
So, some forms, the prayer part of Ora Labora helped centered you and helped kept you on the path of being too robotic.
I mean, whether I was aware of it at that time, so that's why I mentioned when I say the seeds have to be planted and you have to mature into it, right? You can't be a 14-year-old with, unless you're a living saint, but most of us, you grow into it. You grow into your spirituality, your morality, your decision making, your faith and reason, how it develops, right? All these things are, but it has to be stepwise, right? It's progressive, and certainly SGI and the way that we were formed, is the way that it was a good way for me. And even the themes that we used to have annual themes, right? I know it's a perpetual theme now to be meant for others, right? Yep. But it wasn't perpetual then, right? But that was the theme for my year.
Yes,
can't remember what it was for the previous years, but it was so popular, it's become in perpetuum now. But that spoke to me as well, because that was my character, right? Again, to go back to your question about was I more of a rebel or a good boy? I think I was neither. And one of the things that I think I wouldn't say excelled, but what I felt I did best in was existing on the periphery, existing on the edges. Being able to, in a way, infiltrate many different types of groups. I was never the sporty group because I wasn't particularly good at sports. I was never the nerdy group. I wasn't particularly good at studies. I was never particularly in any group. And existing on the peripheries always allowed me to reach out to many different people. And that theme spoke to me very much, being a man for others, helping many groups of people, being able to identify with them and to help them that way. And that has carried through in my life.
Let's take that and let's extend it to your journey in London.
Sure.
Right, because moving out of the SGI environment, right? So it's really moving away from home base for many of us.
Yes.
How was that journey for you? Because I recall, reading through your profile, you went to grammar school in London, you took A-levels, and you had to repeat A-levels because you didn't qualify for med school then. So was it difficult for you? Because it's really away from home base, away from the SGI community, SGI, so the learnings and lessons that we just talked about help you in your days in London?
Okay, so the journey to London was another adventure, if you will. So again, managed to get into triple science after the second time round. Squeaked in. Again, not particularly good at studies, but I towards the end of, I think, close to the tail end of Sec 4, it was, I think, pretty obvious that my studies were okay, plus minus, it wasn't going the best. Then, okay, so here's the bit where I count my blessings lah. My mom in particular had found out about this Cramer College in London, and what it was the idea was you come into the school, you do an accelerated A-level course in 18 months, right? super famous for churning out A+++. It's like the ACS of IB, okay, or something like that, okay? Through various manipulations, okay? Somehow people churn out lots of A+++.
Happy to say that SGI is doing that right now. We're doing better.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, all for it, man. Yeah, but the so essentially when I went over after O levels, it was almost like my O levels were I wouldn't say irrelevant, but the scores were like, it doesn't really matter because you're already into an A level school. So I went over there, and it was a very different environment. It was first of all, I was there all by myself, no parents, no relatives, no nothing. So I'm this 17-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid. Freedom in London. Oh my goodness. But thankfully I'm an SGI boy, so I was the Kwai variety in that sense.
And you were not a rebel, so
not a rebel.
nothing to worry about.
I've always been very rules based lah. So I'm the kind where I will walk the line, but I won't cross the line. Very Singaporean, so well conditioned. But basically, what I did was when I went there, it was like a total secular land. Talk about being away from family and restrictions and prayerful life and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was just hedonism in that way. So yeah, no, I continued to try and study. It worked for a short while, but what I really got into was sports because there were so many sports there and played at quite a high level. So there was like football, even the basketball, the kids playing in the neighborhood courts. I mean, you're talking like honestly, I think some of them could make our national team quite easily, that kind of level. So it was very uncontrolled, shall we say. So since you mentioned the second repeat, we shall jump to that, right? So what happened was studies started to fall behind. This one entirely through my own fault, and again, not being the best student in the world. So again, passed my A levels, but didn't do anywhere near well enough to get into med school. So at this point in time, I'm feeling a bit desperate, right? I've repeated Sec 2. I have spent all this money, my parents' money to, go overseas. Not only did I not make the 18-month thing, I didn't do well enough to get where I want to go. And top it all off, Singaporean, time for NS, right? So I got called up for enlistment. Fortunately, I appealed many times and the powers that be in MINDEF were gracious enough to grant me a temporary exemption. So I went back again and essentially had to, try my best. This time really tried to knuckle down much harder to get the grades necessary lah.
So no more soccer, no more backyard soccer.
Still have, but a lot less. Yeah. So some lots of pool playing as well, pool and snooker. But yeah.
Oh, trust me, when I was my university, that was my downfall as well.
Yeah. So yeah. So that was the life there was totally different. But I would say that if you ask me, the SGI background and lessons learned, did they continue to ring true in my life? Yes, for sure. I think 100% I would still say I looked out for those around me. I'll still tried to live my life as best as possible as a man for others. I suppose I like to think that God kept me on the straight and narrow. Like I said, never did anything dodgy. I was quite a good boy in that way. I mean, I had my late nights out, go clubbing and all that, but nothing on the illegal front, or just very well controlled in that way. So you asked me, was there a guardian angel watching over my shoulder, making sure I didn't get into too much trouble? 100%.
But how do you get through those dark days? I'm sure it may have been tough, right? Because it's a second repeat.
Yep.
You were challenged. So how did you find that center to overcome those dark days that you faced?
I think I was very aware of the many chances I was being given, and say a sense of desperation, maybe, a bit of like, oh, this everything is your last chance. You've done this, you've done that, you've tried this, you've tried that, and was it dark? Yeah, at times. Was there fear? Yes, but that's one of the benefits of being young, right? Youth is wasted on the young. I wouldn't say it really sunk home. I think what was really more apparent for me was really this drive and this need. I don't know, like I said, the calling, right? This thing just saying, keep going, right? Don't give up, right? Kind of thing. And there's that human instinct to say, to want to have fun, want to go and play, want to have a good time. So I would say it was a tussle. Were there dark times where I wasn't sure whether I'd make it all the time, because like I said, despite how much I struggled and how much I tried to study, somehow my grades were just not as good as other people, in that sense. And it wasn't so much from a lack of, I would say, as all my teachers told me, it's not a lack of IQ. It's just somehow just the application just didn't seem to work. I suppose in modern parlance, they would probably diagnose me with some condition or other, as we go all these ADHDs and all these other sorts of things. So who knows? But in our time, that wasn't such a thing, right? And I'm glad for it, because I wouldn't want that crutch anyway, that sort of mental, psychological crutch.
Or that label, or the identity that...
Precisely, it will put me in a box, and I'm very glad that I didn't land up in that box, because one of the things, it made me learn coping mechanisms. It made me learn how to cope, and part of it is coping with adversity, like what you mentioned, and that grows you as a person, as opposed to sinking back and saying, oh, I'm like that because I have this condition. Now, I mean, granted, some people, everything exists on a spectrum, and again, being in the medical line, I mean, it's true that there are some who are truly off the spectrum and they do need help and treatment. But I fear that if I place myself in that situation back then, that I might have been labelled as such, and maybe my life course would have been altered drastically.
But you found your way. Now you're a doctor, right? You have overcome the challenges, right? And let's fast forward to today.
Okay.
Right? Now that you're a doctor, you overcome the challenges, but you also went against the grain, right? Most doctors tend to accelerate or find paths towards being a specialist. But you decided to keep true to being a man for others, remaining as a locum. So we're starting to see a pattern there, So what sparked this commitment, this crazy idea of just remaining as a locum?
Okay, so so locum doctors are basically free agents. Many people who go into the locum field is primarily because they have their own agendas lah. Okay, so I can only speak for myself. When I was still in training, I basically didn't settle down. Well, basically, specialist training in Singapore has changed a lot since I was a junior. But back then, what happened was you apply to a department or specialty that you like, and go through basic specialist training, advanced specialist training, and then exit as a specialist if you pass all your exams. It is the same now, except it's more of a true through training kind of design. So the main thing for me was that I wouldn't say staying pure to being a man for others in terms of being a locum. What I would say is that deciding to turn locum was more of an active decision. There are many locums who are in the field more for push factors, right? Whether it's dissatisfaction with the system, or just have like I said, their own agendas. For me, it was simply because I found that I enjoy what I do in the emergency department without the additional sort of responsibilities, if you call it that, or duties that would have happened if I had gone down the full specialist training route. Administrative responsibilities, research training, and so many things, right? The other thing was this allowed me to stay purely clinical. So in other words, I just get to see patients. I don't have to worry about all the other administrative stuff. The third thing is it gives me more time for me, but time that I can plan, right? It's something which I treasure a lot, and I've always been more of a free-spirited type, as you can probably see from my life course. And so that allowed me to do a lot of all the other things which I wanted to do. In the beginning, of course, it was a little bit more, frivolous is the wrong word, but in the beginning, it was a bit more experiential, shall we say. So basically, the wife or girlfriend at the time and I, we took some time out, and basically we did sort of long form travels, like months at a time on the road. And this allowed us to do that as well. And then, in terms of being able to spend more time with family, and I can decide my hours that way. But at the same time, I can remain true to my core of being able to help patients, see patients. I never had an interest in climbing the ladder moving up and whatnot. And I've had numerous seniors who told me, oh, what a waste. You should have just gotten on the scheme, kind of thing. And it wouldn't have been a problem at all. But I think it was that decision that, what do I want in my life? Do I want to go the traditional route, right? Specialist training, be a hospital specialist, senior consultant, I think it was very apparent to me quite early on that I didn't really enjoy this route. Yeah, so some people might say, not very practical, right? You should have just finished it, be a specialist, the almighty specialist. First thing people ask, right, when you're a doctor, what do you specialize in, right? And there is that thing in me that, listen, I'm not interested in this, therefore I am not going to go down this route.
So you kept true to yourself, and this is your YOLO moment. Having you find the balance between a career and living life as how you aspire it to be.
It's tricky. It's tricky because it's easy to swing either way, both ways. You can go totally YOLO like a lot of people do nowadays, and go down the aesthetics medicine route and just chase the dollar. It happens a lot, unfortunately, to people in the medical world these days, or even unfortunately some who go down the specialist track and land up looking more at the dollars. It's a real thing. I mean, we're all human. We all have bills to pay, and we all have temptations. Yep. So for me, like I said again, because I try and see everything from that spiritual sort of moral viewpoint, being a forever locum in that sense. So in other words, I don't function at the high level. I have no role or say in policy, in direction, in many things. But what I do have control over is how I treat the person sitting across the table from me. And that to me is what I focus on.
So what's a day in the life of an ER doctor? Maybe you can share more on that.
A day in the life of an ER doctor. In Singapore.
In Singapore.
Right, in Singapore.
Here.
Okay.
Right here, where home is.
Well, first of all, in Singapore, we call it either the emergency department or the accident and emergency, right? All the other fancy names you see on TV like ER, trauma, casualty. Sorry.
So this is an A&E doctor.
Yeah. So that in Singapore, our terminology is a bit different. Every day is different. So that is one of the things which kept me in A&E. The variety. I would say it really depends on the day. Some days are busier than others. Obviously, we have increasing numbers of elderly in Singapore. Now, my home base being Tan Tock Seng, we are the biggest trauma center in Singapore. So we see lots of trauma. We used to say all roads lead to Tan Tock Seng, right? PIE, CTE, we're at the geographical center of the country. Of course, in recent years, with the different hospitals, KDPH coming up, Woodlands, and so on and so forth, so many more. The load has decreased a bit in terms of the trauma, but in terms of the actual volume of patients, it probably remains roughly the same, simply because of the elderly and growing population. In a day, you probably see a ton of things. I mean, Singapore, not as exciting as the US, as you might see on TV, all the gunshot wounds and all kinds of funky things. Of course, a lot of people's experience of ER or so, and all these are they are based off TV programs, right? So you see a lot of the dramatic stuff, gunshots, giant road traffic accidents, poisonings, weird sort of characters. We do see some of those in Singapore, but the frequency is a lot less, lah. Yeah.
So what do you see in Singapore? What's A&E in Singapore?
Okay, so A&E in Singapore in general, if you talk about that's exciting to really boring now. Okay, so we classify it according to the priority 1, 2, 3 kind of system, right? Priority 1s are all those really unwell chaps screaming on the ambulances. You will usually see things like your heart attacks, your acute strokes, road traffic accidents, certainly assaults with weapons, occasionally shootings in Singapore, very occasionally. All the more urgent stuff, people who need urgent care, right? Like literally on the spot. Or of course, all your drownings and unfortunately fires and all these kinds of things, lah. Your P2s or priority 2s are those that we would say those who are unwell, ambulance conveys them in. Generally can be more giddiness, vomiting, cannot walk, the subacute stroke, subacute heart attacks, all these sorts of conditions, broken bones but not life-threatening, all these kinds of things. And then P3 would be your walking ill. So those who have more like maybe conditions that could be seen in polyclinic, or maybe some that need an advanced level of care, but they're not super ill. Yeah. So common cases would be those in Singapore. A lot of injuries, a lot of open wounds, fractures. I said giddiness a lot. Giddiness and vomiting. It's the bane of my life.
But would there be moments where you have to call the time of death? Is that something that you see often as a locum doctor?
Yeah, so being a locum does not really influence what type of cases you see. Locum is just basically it's like being a contract worker. So they can deploy me to anywhere. I'm comfortable doing all the different priorities. And certainly over the years there has been a lot of calling time of death. There are those that you experience all spectrums from tiny newborns all the way up to 100-year-old patients, and it's each one is different, right? A lot of people say, how do you deal with it? How do you not get jaded? How do you not get how do you not get numb? And yes, you can get numb, but for me, no. I mean, for me, like I said, I treat every case as by its own merit. So yeah, we see all kinds. I think that of all the specialties in the hospital, we see the most amount of death. I said it's never a good time lah, no matter how prepared people are, right? And those who are uber prepared, usually our palliative service friends would have, been able to help them pass on peacefully at home. Those who come into us are generally more unexpected, or mostly unexpected. Yeah.
But being an SGI, ex-Joe, right? Journey through prayer and work. Has that helped you through this moments where life's reality check hits you hard?
I think the prayer component, again, coming back to that that early planting of the seed, helping one become more aware of your spirituality and your role in the world, my role in the world, right? Again, I don't think I'm doing great things in that way. I think I'm just here to do what I'm told to do, what the Lord has told me to do. And in that respect, yes, that SGI grounding has helped me keep that. It's helped me to retain that aspect of myself. There are many, not just doctors, high-flying professionals where you lose track of yourself, and it's normal. It's not their fault in that sense. It's human. It's human to listen to the ego. It's the temptations of the world and everything else, and get too big for your own boots and all that. And certainly when you're dealing with people who are dependent on you, whether it's death, whether it's suffering, whether it's you delivering news to the families of these patients, right? It's like doctor's way, doctor said so, right? You hear that a lot, and you do this because you're in hospital and you're in my house kind of thing. And there are times when that's called for, but I think that it's too easy to lose yourself and you lose your way. And so the Josephian Lassallean way, it really is something which I think if we allow it to infuse us, it keeps us humble. If we just think back to the founder, right? How his mission was to bring education to all the kids, the poor kids, really, everyone's favorite, last, lost and least, right?
Yes.
But I think sometimes we think about that too narrowly. We think about it just purely in that educational context, that social sort of uplifting context. But for me, it actually applies to everything in our lives. How we treat every person we meet, how we approach our jobs every day. It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, whether you're any job, whether you're doing business. How you approach this, how you apply your spirituality, and how you see everybody you meet. Do you see them as an easy mark, or do you see them as a fellow man of God? Right? Yeah. Does everybody deserve to be treated fairly, morally? I think that all these are questions which we can bring forward into everything in our lives.
No, but that's very deep because your experiences obviously has really crafted you, right? And it's not easy. I mean, you get to see life and death in its most extremes. Has that changed your perception of how you should live life, or how should you even pass on in the future?
Well, I say this to people all the time. Treasure every day. And it's more than just a trope. It really is true. You really never know when your time will come. As I mentioned, I've seen everything you can imagine. Stabbings, road traffic accidents, of course, the kind of stuff you read about in papers, drownings, people, you miss somebody by a fingertip, and what I have been what I have learned in this career is that every moment is precious, and life is truly too short. Often there are a lot of things left unsaid. And so if you ask me, has this shaped the way I approach things and how I want my end of life to be? Certainly, of course. I mean, I think I don't believe in hanging on. I will hang on as long as I can be useful, as long as I can continue to do the Lord's work and be useful to my family. I'll just offshoot a bit.
Yeah.
So we have growing dementia, growing sort of population of people who are cognitively impaired, functionally impaired. And then, this extends into the argument about euthanasia and, how should we treat them. And for me, being in this job, one of the things that I've seen is how even when we are a shell of our former selves in many ways, and you might even say, oh, cognitively, so-and-so is not there already. He's not the person that he used to be. It's kinder to let him go. I don't believe in prolonging life unnecessarily. But on the other hand, I've come to see also the value that even the cognitively impaired person has to the family. Maybe it's to help the family to grow closer together. Maybe it's to help them grow a different part of themselves, that compassionate side. There's so many more. And so when you ask me, has this job shaped how I see the world? Yeah, maybe when I was younger, I would have said, it's kinder, just why not euthanasia and things like that. But this job has shown me that there are so many aspects to human development and so many ways in which we can grow to be better people, right? Even when we are, like I said, empty shells in inverted commas. And even then, that's not very true. Often dementia patients, even when they are seemingly empty shells, there are moments and ways in which you see that, they still retain cognitive awareness and things like that. But that's a discussion for another day.
No, but I get it. Because,
but
for those who are going through dementia, sometimes a familiar smell just warms your heart.
Yes, smell, sound, right? And sometimes you just see. I remember I had a friend and the patient who was had very advanced dementia. Fellow could barely move. He's literally like stiff as a board. But if you played a familiar song, you can see his finger go. He'll be tapping to the beat. And it would be like those 60s rock songs and, back in the day when he was a young man, that kind of stuff. And so you realize that person still lives in there.
Correct.
And the way the family reacts to them and the way they come together, the way that they begin to change their own lives, if they take it in a positive way. Again, all things, it's about how you take it, how you process it, and how you grow with it. Of course, if you resist and you fight and you're resentful and you're angry, then that's not a direction which would be very helpful.
So, but let's take that further because I do feel that warmth that you're sharing about the positive side of medicine, right? Helping families grow together.
Yep.
How about saving lives? What does that feel like? Saving a person from the brink of death and giving him that second chance.
We've seen that. I mean, of course, that's something which we that would be a best outcome lah. But there are various ways that we look at it. One is not every life you save will come back in the same condition that it left, right? But that's
very real, by the way. I totally understand that.
Yeah. Is it like TV where you have like a moment where you are like punching the air and all that? I don't really think so. At least not for me. Because for me, again, I just see it as being a tool in that thing. And honestly, it's still a long journey. Right? Resuscitate you, bring you back. Right? Is it a good feeling? Yes, of course. But do you feel like, I'm the man? Sometimes. And when I was younger, and then I realized it's one of the big lessons that I learned. Pride always comes before a fall.
Yes.
I've had so many times back in the day when I made some, at least I think, so genius diagnosis. And everyone's like, "Whoa, you're the man." And then the next moment you screw up majorly. And the fall from grace, right? And you're just like, oh. And so in time I realized that, be happy, be proud of the work you've done, but never get too big for your own boots.
So let's take this as a moment of reflection, right? Right? Because some very valuable life lessons there. So if you look back in time and meet your younger self, right? The Liam before his Sec 2 first repeat. What would that message be to him?
The message that I would say to him and to all similar young men these days is never give up. Have faith in yourself. Never give up. Never shortchange yourself, because you can do anything. If you and this is not some trope that you just put it out there, right? But it's true that really, really try, and if you are doing the Lord's will, it will happen. There's that famous book back in our day, The Alchemist, right? By Paulo Coelho, right? Everybody read that book.
Everybody read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like when I will misquote this, of course, but when the heavens conspire, essentially, right, to make something happen. And I believe that that's what it is. It is the Lord showing us the way, and we have to take it. And sometimes we really don't know. Often we don't know what the outcome is, but just keep plugging away at it and do His will, right? And to discern properly what is His will, and it will be okay. Yeah.
And which is really a definition of your life.
Yeah.
You took the path, you had faith, and you found your way.
Through many, many painful times. But yes, that's all part of the journey.
But it's all about lessons and all the lessons you have learned. But what would that message be to this new ordinary Joe out there, right, who are facing challenges, they have massive dreams, but feel that they lack the grades, the means, or even the perfect start to achieve it? What would your message be to them, given that you have walked this journey, that you've learned so much from it?
Well, my message would be, again, never give up. Hold on to your dreams. But at the same time, I think what's very important is that we be honest with yourself, I think, from the start, right? One has to discern in that way, right? Is this your will or is this the Lord's will? Of course, when you're young, it's a bit hard to sometimes discern the Lord's will. But I would say, keep the faith, keep plugging away, and opportunities will come. Things will happen. If the Lord wants to tell you something, He will make it obvious. He will make it happen. When times seem the darkest, that's when you just hold the course. Don't lose heart. Many young people these days lack lacking resilience, I suppose, is one of the ways that people talk down to the young generation. And I wouldn't use such terminology particularly, but I would say that what happens is the world that we live in today is very harsh and it's very instantaneous. Judgment, condemnation comes immediately, right? Everything seems so fleeting. It's like here 1 minute, gone the next. Here 1 second, gone the next. So I would say stay the long course. So like what I mentioned just now, 1 year is nothing in your lifespan. 1 year, 2 years even. And I say this all the time to the younger doctors that I meet, because often they're rushing for training opportunities, and I say to them, take your time. The short course isn't always the best way. And in time, things will reveal themselves. Yeah. So have faith, have confidence, keep plugging away, right? And always pray and work.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about us just finding that patience in ourselves. Just giving ourselves that one chance, yeah?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, so that's the difficult part of today's interview.
Okay.
We're going to go to something a bit more lighthearted.
Right.
We call this the Ordinary Joe Rapid Fire Round.
Okay.
All right, so I'll ask you a series of questions, but don't you overthink, just give us your gut reaction. All right, so let's start, shall we?
This is dodgy.
Oh.
Okay.
Don't worry, we won't make it too difficult for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Whereas Stella Blue or SGI Green?
SGI Green.
The old school canteen, what's the one dish you cannot live without?
Fries.
Fries?
Fries.
We had fries.
Yeah. You didn't have fries in your time?
I don't remember fries.
Fries.
Oh. Drama class or running track?
Track. No, wait, take that back. Not track. Cross country.
Marichi.
Yeah. Sorry, Patrick Zender and Alfred Nathan.
Principal office or retaking your A-levels?
Principal office.
Only if it's Brother Paul, right?
I have some very painful memories there as well. Yeah.
Night shift or day shift?
Wow, tricky, man. Each has its merits. Night shift. Night shift.
shift.
Yeah.
Best pick me up after 12 hours of A&E shift.
Supper.
Supper.
24-hour supper.
And the supper would
Oasis at Toa Payoh.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, but now closed down already.
No, not there anymore. Medical drama or true crime?
Neither. A good book.
One word to describe the feeling of saving a life.
Glorious.
A favorite medical term that sounds like a fake word.
Koro.
I would love to know what that means.
I tell you right now, Koro is a condition found originally in the Malay archipelago.
Really?
And it's a condition where it's a psychiatric condition where males believe that their genitals are shrinking.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
And so
I learned something new.
so the traditional cure was they would tie string to their manly bits and try and pull it out.
And I'm sure that it created a reverse effect for it. What's your one word to tell the class of 2026? That's the graduating class for this year.
One word. That's tough, man. One word. Pray.
Great. Okay. What will your other side be doing right now?
My other side? Other side meaning
Well,
other
imagine
half.
you to having
other,
a different side of you right now.
my other side.
Yeah. Your evil twin.
Ah, evil twin. Right.
Or your twin. You could. I mean, you're neutral. You're not a rebel. Neither you're a model student. You're neutral.
Probably out running.
Running. Okay.
Paying homage to my cross-country roots.
And Mary Chi.
Not necessarily.
Complete the sentence. An ordinary Joe is someone who.
It's filled with resilience and honor.
Very well done. And that marks the end of the rapid fire round.
Ah, okay.
Not too difficult, I hope.
Not too difficult.
Okay, but what we're going to do now is to ask for you to give a challenge to our viewers and listeners, something that everyone can attempt that embodies the Josephine spirit. So what would that challenge be?
Reach out to somebody every day of your life. It's kind of like the traditional Boy Scouts, right? You'll do a good deed a day, but reach out to somebody and do it with intention and do it with purpose that you want to spread the light of God, the light of the world to them. And even if it's the simplest task in the world to greet the store auntie warmly, if it's to say hello to your office cleaner, if it's to hold the door open for somebody with a warm smile, just something intentional and something which you are spreading the light.
Thank you, Liam. I think that's a beautiful end to today's episode.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming and joining us.
You're very welcome.
One inspiring story of grit. Thank you, Liam. Right, for showing us that the SCENIC route still leads to the destination if you don't stop walking. For everyone out there feeling behind, don't hop off the path. Your time is coming. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of No Ordinary Joe. Next time on the show, we welcome an old Joe who has a cartoon-like perspective of Singapore, pop's culture identity. If Liam's challenge spoke to you, give it a go. If his story sparked something, share it. Whether you're class of 72, 82, or 2025, stay curious and keep it alive. After all, even an ordinary Joe can lead a life less ordinary. I'm Jason Chen, and this is No Ordinary Joe.
How do I know I can start?